to ask you something that often comes up on the anti-Israel side when it comes to JNF. JNF is sometimes demonized or criticized for being this sort of colonialist entity that conspired to steal Palestinian land. Now, we know, historically speaking, that that's simply not true. But I'm wondering what your answer is to these types of criticism that JNF sometimes receives.
So first, I think it's a great that people, if you're noticed, even in the negative world, means you're doing something. So I take it as a badge of honor in some ways. But let's take the story. We talk about young leadership today. We talk about influencers and people make a difference. Theodor Herzl died at the age of 44. 44. He was the first JNF future. Now, I want you to imagine a secular Jew, never had been bar mitzvahed, living in the golden age of the Jewish world at the time, found and saw anti-Semitism like he never saw before and realized that no matter how great it was for the Jews in Europe at the time, that unless we returned to our ancestral soil, we would never be. That our future was there. So what did he do? He organized the Jewish National Fund. They sat around and talked for 5 years at the Zionist Congress about we should have the land because it's ours biblically. No. They sat around and talked about legal rights to have that land. We could show ownership and ownership. No. Instead, they came up with the Jewish National Fund to repurchase the land of Israel. And I use the word repurchase because land was sold to us. It was under the Ottoman Empire. People have to know just basic history. Where did the land come from? Purchased. By the way, not great land. Land that had swamps and malaria in the north. Places that were flooded, that nothing was growing on. Read, Mark Twain was in Israel in the 1800s. He wrote a whole book about his tour through the Holy Land. And he said, I don't know who God gave this land to, but they should ask for a refund. That's Mark Twain. He talked about the land being devoid of trees or vegetation. Wow. So Jewish National Fund repurchased the land. Now let's talk about the trees. Do you know how they came about? I want to say that we were great environmentalists, that we're great foresters. It was by accident. Under Ottoman law, you had 7 years to either grow on your land or live on your land or lose it. So the Eastern European Jews brought the pine trees from Eastern Europe and planted them because pine trees did not have to take care of them. And it was a way to hold on to the land which nobody was living on. But 260 hand-planted trees later, by the way, why do I say hand-planted? Because Jews were coming without education, with no job. And you would see trees that were planted in places like in Mount Moriah, places that you said, why are trees planted in the middle of this rock? Do you know why? It was an employment opportunity. You would fill up a truck with tree saplings. And so to give dignity to the Jews that were coming from North Africa and Arab countries, you would go and get a paycheck by just planting a tree in a terrible location. So it's a romantic story that we have to tell about how did we repurchase acre by acre of that land? And then it wasn't just about repurchasing it. How did we make love to that land? How did we grow on that land? Where did we build communities? And think about it, and it deals with today with the Israel envelope and what happened on October 7th. People have to realize, do you know when the first kibbutzim was established there? 1943. Get the numbers? 1943. The first kibbutzim was established there from Jews that came from Brazil, the Jews that came from Egypt. And they were sent there by the Jewish National Fund, Karen Kayemet, to be farmers. By the way, none of them were farmers. They did a good barbecue. None of them were farmers. They became some of the great agronomists in all of Israel because they took a desert and they started to make it bloom. In 1948, Ben Gurion had heard that the Negev may not be part of the partition plan for the land of Israel. So they established tower and stockade communities down in the Israel envelope. Established 7 of them. In 1948, 1947, in Yom Kippur, at midnight. Now, why tower and stockade communities? It's a great story called legality. Under British law, which we were under then, if you built a tower and a stockade, you could not tear down the community. It was a legal community. So that's where the word tower and stockade. People should learn this great romantic story, these people that started. By the way, where did they find